Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we are going to be looking at volume. But we're not going to just be working forward with volume to take a flat object and give it some height. What we are going to be doing here is we are going to be working forward, and then we're going to be working backward to determine some of the other lines that we might have in a cylinder. So we are going to be taking a cylinder, pushing it back to a flat object, and then working it back to specific lines. So there's a lot to unpack here as we move forward. What I would invite you to do, pause the video as you need to, go back and rewatch if necessary, comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. So let's get started. So first things first, what we need to understand is the formula for volume. Everything is going to start from there, and it's going to be referred back to. Okay, so the formula for any volume is going to be the area of a base times the height. So it doesn't matter what shape you're dealing with. You have the area of the base. So for a trapezoid, for instance, it'd be B1 plus B2 times height divided by 2 times the height, because that whole thing that I just mentioned was the formula for area. If you had a rectangular prism, length times width will give you area, times the height will give you the third dimension, which is going to be your volume. So when we're dealing with a cylinder, however, we need to remember the formula for area of the circle, which would be the flat object, and then we're going to multiply it by the height. So we've done a video before where we look at how to solve for area of a circle. We'll throw a card in the top right-hand corner. You can go check that out if you need to, or just stick here for a second because I've already got it pretty much written for you. So in order for you to determine the area of a circle, you're dealing with pi, r, and squared. Now, r squared is not the radius times 2, it is the radius times itself. We have another video, I believe it's the same one, that talks about how it works, why it works as r squared when you break everything down. Go check it out if you need to. So first, let's solve this. We've got volume is equal to area times the height. Well, that seems like it's pretty simple to solve. We've already got the formula here. Let's just plug it in and do it. So volume is area times height. Volume is going to be equal to pi r squared. Pi r squared times the height. Volume is pi, which is going to be constant at 3.14, times radius squared, which is times 6 times 4. Now, mathematically, you could just take this and just go right across and do all the multiplication at one time on a calculator if you felt like you need to, but I'm going to break it down so that way you can see what the area would have been. That's going to be important for doing these. And then multiplying it by the height to give it the volume, the shape that it needs, okay, to give it some space. So volume here is going to be 3.14 times 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. 36 times 3.14 is 113.04, I think. 113.04, we're going to multiply that times the height. The area of this circle right here and this circle, okay, not together, but the area of one circle is 113.04 centimeters squared times this third dimension, which is the height. That's going to give us a volume of 452, I think, 0.16. And that will be centimeters cubed. Now, it's important you don't forget that cubic centimeters thing. And the reason you don't want to forget that is because it shows that the object has 3 dimensions. 3 dimensions. So as I mentioned, a rectangular prism, length times width times height, that's 3 dimensions. A circle has 3 dimensions as well, radius squared, pi, and the height will give you what it is you're looking for in order to determine the volume or to give it some space. Okay, that should be pretty easy. I imagine that you've probably learned that. What you might not have learned is working backward, okay? Let's work on this. So essentially what we need to remember when we're working backward to solve for radius, we've got a number of steps that we need to do, which will be the inverted order of what we just did. Okay? And that might make a little more sense as we go through it. So first things first, if we remember that the volume formula is area of the base times the height, and we're looking for area because r squared or r is part of area, then we are going to change the formula from area times height to volume divided by height. And the reason for that, if you think of a fact family, you have 2 plus 3 is 5, but if you move the big number to the equation itself, you have to invert the operation. So 5 minus 2 would be 3. Same numbers, I have the same letters here. Volume is area times height, VA and H, VA and H. I've just changed them around and inversed the operation to give me what I need. So now that we have this, let's go area is equal to volume. I know what the volume is because I just solved it, 452.16, divided by height. And height was 4. Divided by, make that a little bit bigger. That's going to give me the area. I'm taking this 3-dimensional object and taking away one of the dimensions. So that's going to give me a squared area. 452.16 divided by 4 is going to be what the area was down here, 113.04, and this is now the 3-dimensional object compressed into the flat object. It's going to be squared centimeters. So this is centimeters squared. Now we need to think about, okay, well, wait a second. We have an area. How do we work backward to solve for a radius? Well, if we remember the formula for area, it's pi r squared. So the only thing that I can use right now that will help me determine this is r squared. R squared I'm going to need. And much like this, we're going to swap the numbers around. We're going to take area and divide it by pi. Because we have pi r squared to equal a is pi r squared, well, we've got r squared, a, and pi. So we've again just taken the formula, switched it around, and inverted the operation. So r squared is going to be equal to 113.04 divided by pi, which is 3.14. R squared is going to be 36. Okay, so we're back to r squared now. What we've got here is we've got something, a shape with an area of 36 squared centimeters inside. But what we have to do is we have to go back even further. We have to find out what the root of these numbers are. And so in order for us to determine what r is, we need to know if this is a square, a true square. It means that this number is the same as this number. They're exactly the same. We need to find what that root number is. So there is a handy button on your calculator. It's called a square root button. We're going to take r and square root 36. It looks like that little long division sign. It's not long division, it's the square root button. And we will see that if we punch in the square root of 36, then r is going to be equal to 6 centimeters. 6 centimeters because it's no longer a squared area, it's just the length of a line. So it does not need a cube or a square behind it. And you'll notice it's the same number as right here. Whew! Now, let's work backward to find height. Little less that we need from this, but you will need to know area in order for this to work. So if your shape does not have the area solved, you got to figure it out. Here we go. So if we are looking to determine height, height is going to be equal to, and you'll notice we had area, volume, height. Well, we got to do the exact same thing. We're going to swap around some of these letters here. We're going to determine height by dividing volume by area. AVH, AVH. And then we've got AVH right here. So you'll see that all of them are the same. Height is going to be determined by dividing volume times area, which means that if you haven't already seen it or solved the area, you're going to need to do that first. So we're simply going to take what we already have done here. We've already done this work, so we're just going to show you where it came from. We've got the volume, which was 452.16, and we're going to divide it by 113.04, 113.04, and height is simply going to be 4 centimeters. A lot less work for us to do it that way, but you do have to remember that you do need to solve the area first before you can even do that formula. So let's recap. What we've done here, we have worked forward to determine volume. Volume is the area of the base times the height. In terms of a cylinder, pi r squared times height. When we're working backwards, what we need to do is we need to determine the area first simply by dividing volume times the height. Volume divided by the height, volume divided by the height gave us the area. There's the area. Then we had to break down the formula for area and go r squared is equal to area divided by pi. We used the numbers that we know. Area we knew, pi we knew, r squared we didn't. By taking area and dividing by pi, that gave us r squared. So we now knew what r squared was. Then we simply use the square root button to determine what the length of the radius would be. And then if we were working backward to determine what height was, we again needed to have volume divided by area would give us height. Volume divided by area gave us 4 centimeters, and that was it. So a lot to unpack, as I mentioned. What I would recommend you do is go back, rewatch the video as you need to, pause, stop it if you need to, and work your way through it. Like if you did enjoy the video, comment down below if you have any thoughts or any questions, and we can try to help you through some of the issues that you might be having. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all again in the next video coming up shortly. Thanks.